The science fiction movie They Live was minorly successful when it was first released, despite being widely panned by critics at the time. Later, the film grew to be a cult classic, and recently has been making it into the news, often with left and right-wing groups appropriating the movie to make it serve their own political agenda. It's not really surprising that a film like this would rise in the cultural consciousness over time. After all, a movie about mass media being used to control people's lives would obviously become irrelevant after the average person has a cell phone in their pockets that can not only access the internet, but also stream TV shows and movies. I want to analyze how online discourse surrounding movies can shape public opinion. In particular, I'm going to cover the internet memes and spin-offs that have cropped up surrounding They Live. The internet plays a large role in They Live's continued relevance. The memes surrounding the film first started to pop up on 4chan and 8chan's pull, i.e. politically correct image boards. One of the more popular memes is a photoshopped cover for the movie They Live. The cover, which depicts Nada with his sunglasses tilted down, reflecting a menacing alien, now shows the alien replaced with an NPC. An NPC, or non-playable character meme, is an alternative form of the MS Paint character Wojak, painted gray with a blank and soulless stare. The core idea behind this meme is that left-wing people, like NPCs in video games, are incapable of thinking for themselves. In this case, though, instead of following a code written by a game developer, they just mindlessly nod along to whatever TV tells them to think. At first glance, it just seems like a silly meme, but it actually shows a surprisingly nuanced understanding of They Live's themes. Much of the interpersonal conflict in the film stems from Nada trying to make people think for themselves and question the system they've spent their whole lives in, but they just won't listen to him. He had to fight Frank, his only friend, tooth and nail in order for him to put on the sunglasses. He even tries to convince a lady to wear them after hijacking her car and breaking into her house. He also jumps at the chance to join a resistance cell, risking everything. The movie's poster is not the only example of this movie becoming a meme. There are parodies of the scene where Nada first puts on the sunglasses all across YouTube. They replaced the subliminal messages that were revealed in the original scene with right-wing talking points. Where the original subtitles would read, "Obey, marry and reproduce, stay asleep," the parody version would say things like, "CNN is fake news, hate white people, etc., etc." There's a YouTube video where Nada puts on his sunglasses and discovers that the sign that had previously read #BlackLivesMatter actually says, "Hate the police," with the implication being that the Black Lives Matter movement is not about ending police brutality and racial profiling, but just mindlessly hating on the police for no reason. This stands out as being particularly strange, given that the police act as major antagonists throughout the actual movie. In the movie, without warning and in the middle of the night, the police destroy Justiceville, and Nada is forced to leave his home. He runs away, chased by police officers, whose eyes are hidden, shrouded behind riot gear. Later on, the police massacre the entire resistance cell, with only Nada, Frank, and Holly Thompson managing to survive. Police brutality has mostly been a left-wing talking point, with Black Lives Matter being the most obvious example. The attention the alt-right has given this movie goes beyond just creating memes to amuse themselves. Alex Jones, a prominent member of the alt-right, has praised They Live, stating that it's one of my favorite all-time movies. He also says that he's probably seen it 100 times. It breaks down everything. This is troubling praise, considering it is coming from the man who was not only banned from Facebook, but also Apple, YouTube, and Spotify for running the far-right website known as InfoWars, which peddles fake news and conspiracy theories. Additionally, an animated show called Murdoch Murdoch did an episode on the movie. For the uninitiated, Murdoch Murdoch is like a lower-budget version of South Park, only if South Park pushed neo-Nazi ideology. The show had an episode titled They Sleep, We Live, which directly and darkly parodied the movie They Live. After they got banned from YouTube for hate speech violations, they were forced to relocate to goytalk.com, which is a white nationalist website. This parody clearly illustrates how white nationalists tie the movie They Live into their worldview. We're introduced to the main character, a liberal man in glasses, clearly meant to be a far cry from Nada's blue-collar charm. A well-dressed black man asks him for donations for the local African-American church, and he is more than happy to oblige. Like Nada in They Live, he waits in a long line to try to apply for a job, only to get rejected. The reason why he gets rejected is different from Nada, though. When he tells them that he has a degree in gender studies, he is laughed off and is forced to leave in shame. The black man, who had approached him earlier, comes up to him again asking for donations. He tries to explain that he doesn't have any money left to spare, but he gets punched in the face, causing his glasses to fall off. It is then revealed that his glasses were obscuring the truth from him. The man was a street thug, demanding gibs. Gibs is a term that refers to handouts given to or demanded by ungrateful people. Later in the episode, he sees a seemingly healthy interracial couple with his glasses on. When he takes them off, the seemingly handsome black man is revealed to actually be an ape, and the pretty and skinny blonde white woman is revealed to actually be overweight and heavily bruised from domestic abuse. Just as taking off his rose-tinted glasses in the parody episode makes him view the world the way a white nationalist would, Nada putting on his glasses in They Live and discovering the truth is interpreted by some alt-writers as a metaphor for taking the red pill. The term is a reference to The Matrix, where Neo, the main character, is offered the choice between a red and blue pill by the rebel leader, Morpheus. Taking the red pill means they are choosing to live a life of harsh truths over a life of blissful illusion. To quote the article, Invasion of the Individual, John Carpenter's modernization of the myth of identity theft in The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and They Live. The fear of being unable to correctly distinguish between our friends and our foes has struck different generations in different ways, with the attribution of the evil inhabiting the human often used as a metaphor for prevailing social fears of that time period. In the movie They Live, the public has been brainwashed into believing that malicious aliens are normal, albeit successful humans. The prevailing social fear of the white nationalist worldview, which the movie ties into, is the idea that there is a group of parasitic imposters in society. In the movie, the aliens are using radio waves to trick humans into seeing them as other humans. According to some members of the alt-right, the Jews will pretend to be white in order to subvert and destroy white culture from the inside. The plot details of the alien invasion storyline in They Live actually tie in well with the white nationalist worldview. In They Live, the aliens keep the human population under control by using the media as a tool for brainwashing. According to the article, Charlottesville and the alt-right, a turning point, many members of the alt-right believe that Jewish people control the government, media, and universities. In order to back up these claims, they latch on to any examples of Jewish people in positions of power they can find. They are quick to point out the high percentage of secular Jews in Hollywood, along with compiling lists of Jewish billionaires, CEOs, and owners of news outlets. Many members of the alt-right believe that Jews use their control of the media to facilitate white genocide, which lines up pretty well with aliens planning to use humans as cattle. Despite this, the overlap is completely coincidental. John Carpenter, the director of the film, addressed this interpretation of his film on Twitter. He said, "They Live is about yuppies and unrestrained capitalism. It has nothing to do with Jewish control of the world, which is slander and a lie." It's hard not to empathize with his frustration here. He chose to make many changes in his adaptation of the original comic book. In the original comic book, the protagonist lives in a comfy apartment with his beautiful fiancée, while the movie's protagonist is homeless and alone. These crucial changes add a critique of capitalism to a previously non-political story. The cultural anxiety that Carpenter was capitalizing on is Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics. While previous American science fiction movies focused on an outside invasion taking over society, i.e. the Russians, They Live directed its criticism inwards, at America itself, satirizing the faults of the 80s, or the Me decade. The alt-right are not the only ones to appropriate a film originally about Reagan-era politics. Marxists have done something very similar. In fact, in the academic sphere, the movie They Live is largely endorsed by Marxist film critics. John Goldenberg's article Farce's Tragedy proves this. One example he points to is the Writing in Dissent Voice, a radical newsletter in the struggle for peace and social justice. Yeah, that social justice. The communist writer, Christopher Caliphs, I think that's how you pronounce it, Google,
Christos Kefalis,
dubs They Live the Marxist movie par excellence. He adds that it is one of the most devastating and sharp criticisms of American imperialism ever made, representing in exemplary fashion the process of neoconservative barbarization in American society, as well as the dynamic of its revolutionary overthrow. Harlan Wilson, in his book They Live, which he wrote on the movie, states that They Live foregrounds the perspective of the homeless. And he's absolutely right. The story starts with a down-on-his-luck man moving to Los Angeles, where he quickly manages to find a job as a construction worker. His new boss is largely non-empathetic to his situation, despite knowing that he has no place to stay, and no one to turn to. Despite having a job, our main protagonist is in fact homeless, which is important because it fights the stereotypes surrounding homeless people, which is that if someone does end up on the streets, it's their own fault because they're either a drug addict or they just can't keep a job. Nada squats in Justiceville, a shantytown encampment situated in downtown Los Angeles, with an eccentric group of other homeless people. At the beginning of the movie, he waits in line to try and get a job through conventional means, only to be told to leave. Despite being a hard worker, he's stuck in poverty. Even his name outlines his underdog nature, as Nada literally translates to nothing. Beyond the script itself, the subtle details in the setting help reinforce this theme of poverty. Harlan Wilson points this out in his book, stating, "The elegant skyscrapers of the cityscape loom over Nada and his cohorts in blight, but as part of the backdrop, accumulating the disparity between downtown wealth and fringe poverty." Over the course of the movie, the political commentary becomes even more blatant. When Nada and Jack walk around the shantytown late at night, They happen across a group of men watching TV. The television program they are watching glitches out and is quickly cut short by a bearded man, who later in the movie is revealed to be one of the leaders of the underground resistance cell made to combat the alien invasion. Some key quotes from his speech are,
"Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The movement was begun 8 months ago by a small group of scientists who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent through the poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
Despite how hijacked the movie eventually became, the author's intent was never to make a propaganda piece. Most viewers can see there's a genuine concern for the fate of the blue-collar worker underneath all the movie's abundant campiness. The article, The B-Movie with a Message, published an interview about They Live, in which John Carpenter revealed a bit about his personal history. When I first came to California, through these 20 years ago, to attend the UCS film school, I lived in the ghetto. I went to downtown Los Angeles to go to an all-night grindhouse theater where the windows swept, so I knew about the pain and poverty of the homeless. The reason why the depiction of poverty in They Live feels so real is because it came from his personal experience. No matter how good John Carpenter's intentions were, he can't control who relates to his movie or how they'll interpret it. All great movies are deeper than any singular political worldview, and They Live's ideologically diverse fanbase is a testament to the quality of the writing in the movie. The internet is a double-edged sword. How alt-writers and Marxists have interpreted the movie has gone a long way to keep it in people's heads, which I feel is a good thing, but it's also kind of a shame, because all this controversy might be drowning out its original message. At the end of the day, it's up to us as consumers of media to take these new viewpoints with a grain of salt, and to not believe every hot take we hear on the internet. We can easily let the true meaning of work slip through our fingers if we're not careful. So let's try and not do that.